Hello and welcome to an emergency episode of Def Lep Pod, the officially unofficial Def Leppard podcast. I'm joined by Paul Burns, and we're going to have a chat about the new Def Leppard single, Rejoice, which was released on streaming platforms and YouTube and other such like on Thursday, the 22nd of January, 2026. And Paul, are you happy that we can still call this an emergency episode, even though we're recording 4 days after the release?
Yeah, the weekend came along in the meantime, didn't it? And, stuff gets in the way. So, absolutely, it's fine to call this an emergency podcast. I don't think anyone can pull us up on that.
Just like when I made the tea earlier, which was a nice sort of tandoori chicken kebab, which I started marinating the chicken at 11:30 today, Paul, and then
Wow.
we had it about 5 p.m. I feel like Rejoice, the Def Leppard single, is like that chicken that I've had today, where it's good to let it marinate, let it just sort of sit for a while, and then you can truly see what you think about it.
Yeah, well, you said that you've had a bit of an experience of this whereby after initial listens, you kind of deliberately stepped back for a day or so and then jumped back in to allow that percolation to take place before revisiting. And that helps your listening experience, doesn't it?
I find it terribly overwhelming, Paul. I really do. But I am no longer overwhelmed, and I have views on this song. But before we get to my views, Paul, you've heard it, Rejoice by Def Leppard. What do you think of it?
Yeah, I really like it. Really like it. And I liked it. We'll talk presumably about the little snippets and the teasers that we got, but the very, even that was enough to make me think, oh, this might be going in a direction I enjoy. I'm not going to say it's the most perfect Def Leppard song ever written. I'm not going to say it's a classic Def Leppard song, although it has elements of classic Def Leppard in it. But I think this is a really solid addition to the canon. I really like it. I'm very, very positive about it. It's one that it has grown as well, by the way. So even though I liked it immediately, it has only got a little better. So that's my overall take. I'm really, really glad this has been added to the canon.
You talked about the teasers then, so let's just get straight into that. By my calculation, there were four teasers for this song on social media, and they started in the weekend before. The first one is essentially the first 5 seconds of the song, which is the drumming, and there's a little bit of ambient noise. So that was the very, very first teaser that we got. And it was also linked to an advertisement for Vegas. Then there was the second teaser, which is essentially the first, by my reckoning, 17 or 18 seconds of the song. And that's the continuation of those drums. And then you get the power chords coming in. And then you get that siren style effect, which I believe is actually a guitar. Then the third teaser was the one that had a little bit of a video of sorts to it where you could see like a billboard with a Def Leppard poster on it. And again, that's just slightly extended that first 18 seconds or so. And that's the first time you hear the riff. So that was the third teaser. And then there was actually a fourth teaser where if you did follow the links and pre-save this, in any way, whether it be on Spotify or Apple Music, there was something you could then click on and you could actually hear a little excerpt of the chorus. And I think you could access that from about a couple of days beforehand. So by my reckoning, there was four teasers. So of those teasers, which ones did you hear? And as you just intimated, did the song go in the direction that you thought it would based on the teasers that you'd heard?
Yeah, I didn't catch on to that fourth teaser at all. I must be honest. I don't know how that sort of passed me by. The first inkling I had about this was you sent me a message, and it was just asking the question, do we think this is a new song? So it was the very first teaser, and then the second one is where we got the extended bit. My Did I think it was gonna, has the song ended up going where I thought it was going to go? Yes, absolutely, because the first thing that struck me about it was this is the heavier end of the Def Leppard sound. Certainly the heavier end of the modern Def Leppard sound, because I don't know that maybe Open Your Eyes possibly on Diamond Star Halos could be called sort of in this kind of bracket of heaviness. I think I've offered my opinion before on here about the heavier end of Def Leppard being my favourite end of Def Leppard, and so I was really, really keen straight away. Being honest, Neil, feeling that okay, this doesn't sound like Diamond Star Halos Mark II. That was an element of it. I mean, you're in the unfortunate position of being in the host chair. What was your take on and when you heard the teasers and your general vibe?
I think when I heard the very first teaser where it was just the drums, and the second teaser where it was just the drums, the power chords, and that sort of siren effect. At that point, I was thinking this could go really heavy, or not really heavy, but sort of stay downbeat. So, so for example, you made a brilliant comparison then. It could take a Open Your Eyes off Diamond Star Halos feel to it, or it could have gone to, like maybe more of a desert song where it's like a heavier, more serious Def Leppard song. I sensed that it wasn't going to, because you could just towards the end of it hear there was like higher guitars coming in. And I did suspect that it would go to a slightly lighter feel. I mean, it's still a pretty heavy riff, and it's a heavier riff than, I mean, I saw a lot of people saying at that point that they thought it might go in a Let's Go direction of the 2015 album, or maybe even an Undefeated direction. I think it's much heavier than both of those songs. So it did go in many ways where I suspected. I didn't think it was going to stay as heavy as it sounded like it might be at the start. But I agree with you. For a Def Leppard song, and for a Def Leppard song sort of in the modern era, I think it's about as heavy as a Def Leppard song that you're probably going to get in this day and age. Hello, Def Leppard mates, Neil here. We quickly interrupt this episode just to let you know Def Lep Pod now has a Patreon page where you can support us if you would like and receive even more. You can sign up now for a 7-day free trial to our Gods of More membership, where you'll receive the following: early access to every episode of Def Lep Pod, access to an extra Patreon-only episode of Def Lep Pod every month, plus on top of that, a monthly Def Leppard news roundup in video and audio format, plus other random video content as the whim takes us. So click on that link in the show notes or go to patreon.com/Def Lep Pod and give it a go. If you don't want to be a Gods of More member on Patreon, but you would still like to support Def Lep Pod and help us keep the show on the road, then you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Def Lep Pod and buy us a coffee. Thank you very much, everyone. Back to the show. What I'll do is, obviously, we'll talk a little bit more about bits of the songs in a second, but at this point, I will just read out to you what the press release said of this song, because this is always interesting, because you get a bit of Joe, you get a bit of Phil, you get a little bit of what they think about it, and you can talk about it within, the frame of reference they put it in. So, the press release, Def Leppard has released a high voltage new song titled Rejoice. The standalone single is being released to celebrate the band's upcoming Las Vegas residency, which kicks off in February at Caesars Palace. Then this is a quote: "The song's been an amazing journey from concept to conclusion," singer Joe Elliott explained in a press release. "I said to Phil one day, I've got this idea for a lyric where the narrator is absolute rock bottom and wants to rise up to a higher level. Do you have a musical piece that might match that?" And he said, "As it happens, yes, I do." And then Phil Collin added, "I had this riff, this idea for a song a while ago, actually. So when Joe came to me, I created this drum loop based with a tribal sound, and it fitted perfectly with the other arrangement I had. I sent it to Joe, and it was like magic. He sang straight over the top of it, and that's how the song was formed. Then we gave it to Ronan McHugh, who'd done a proper drum loop with different sounds. It all started gelling and just sounded like a powerful chant. We love it. It's hard rock for us. It's got a bit more oomph than stuff we've been doing for a while. It's kind of magical." I mean, a lot of that, or certainly the recording process and the way they put the song together, it sounds a lot like what they were doing in Diamond Star Heroes, even though the song doesn't sound like it would be on Diamond Star Heroes. Would you agree?
Diamond Star Halos here, we mean, Neil, because of course Diamond Star Heroes is a different album and it was never likely to appear on there.
Of course, it's almost like we've recently recorded a Diamond Star Heroes episode, which will be out in 2 days, everybody.
I agree entirely. But it reassuringly collaborative. because there's been times, obviously, in previous years, I might have, be having to go all the way back to, Sparkle Lounge to really fully make this point, but there's been times where it has maybe felt not quite as collaborative as it would have done. Interesting that have we seen it in writing that it really is just the two of them, that this is a Colin Elliot collaboration and there is no one else on it in terms of writing? What have we got?
When you look at the credits on Spotify or Apple Music, it's an absolute mess. You've completely got it wrong. So on it, they actually say who the performers are. And in the performers, they include Pete Willis and Steve Clark. And I think initially people were thinking, oh, right, is this an old song that's being brought back to life or revitalized in some way? But it's not, that's not in the writing credits. That's just in the performers, is it who's like in the band now. So that's completely wrong. So I think there was a little bit of an excitement earlier on. I was like, oh, is this some old riff or some old idea? So it's not. When you look at the writing credits, it does say that it is Phil and Joe. So I think it is just Phil and Joe. And, what they've said there would actually, suggest that that's the case. There was some other bits and bobs that came out as well in different radio interviews and things that have happened since last Thursday. And I'll just mention a couple of those. So when the song was first played on Planet Rock on Thursday, and I'm paraphrasing here, and thank you to Andy Gibbons who's paraphrased this, and it's his paraphrasing that I'm using. Joe says that the new song is uplifting and classic Def Leppard, so that ties in with what they're saying about the press release. They're known for writing stadium anthems, and they enjoy writing these type of songs. Again, very familiar line that you hear from the band, especially when they bring out first or early singles from what will be a new album. Rejoice will be on new album. Oh, and by the way, it was you who said to me when we first heard the name of this that Rejoice would be a great name for the album, and I 100% agree. I think it'd be a fantastic name for the album. Just like 73, maybe on the new album. They haven't decided yet. It depends on what balance the album needs. And then it also goes on to say that another new song, will be released in time for the UK tour. And it also says, and I know we're going off a little bit about this song now, that the album release date, so this is the album that Rejoice is going to be on, could be soon after that. My reading of that being paraphrased is very much that we might have an idea when the album's coming out after the UK tour, as opposed to the album will be out after the UK tour. So I think maybe in the summer we'll have an idea whether it will be the end of this year or the beginning of next year. And then just the last thing that they've said here is everything is done on their own terms now. They don't have to answer to the record company. And since getting back with the record company, they've taken their catalogue to places they couldn't have on their own. And the record company are receptive to their new music too. Any part of that stand out for you at all, Paul?
New album. We've felt for a while that we've known for ages that other music was in the works and another album was going to be coming along. What year are desperately, as he says now, desperately thinking back, when did Diamond Star Halos come out? Is that 2022 that Diamond Star Halos was released? Yeah. So if we do get it this year, it is still a 4-year gap, which by Def Leppard standards is not a big gap, but with 4 years is actually well, this is of course if you don't bring Drastic Symphonies into it and Diamond Star Heroes, but I think everyone will know what I mean by that. So that's exciting. That is clearly very exciting news and might be the case by the end of this year.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? It doesn't feel like 4 years. And I think the reason it doesn't feel like a 4-year gap is because there hasn't been 4 years of silence. So obviously 2022, the album comes out. 2023, they're still touring it. Drastic Symphonies comes out. 2024, we get, they're still doing bits of touring in the summer. You get Just Like 73. 2025, I know it's not a massive deal, but you get that cover they did of Stand By Me, to raise money for the LA fires. There's the Bad Company release that Joe and Phil were on as well. There's other little bits and bobs. Of course, they did a few shows in 2025 as well. And now we're into 2026 and we get a new song, Rejoice. So they've done a good job, haven't they? And I think they have done a good job for a good while now of staying present and staying visible in some form or another, where it doesn't just feel like this vacuum of 4 years. So I think that's why it feels like it's gone relatively quick. And if they were to release an album this year, even though it's 4 years, which is the same as what was between Pyromania and Hysteria, it would weirdly feel like a quick turnaround.
Yeah, I think you've explained exactly why that is.
I think at this point, what I'll do is just very quickly, because I haven't touched on it, I'll just tell you what I actually think of it. And I'm just going to go through some of the bits of the song that I picked out. You jump in where you want, Paul, in terms of there's any bits that you agree with. Because interestingly, what I've seen is people discussing the same thing and then having different opinions on it, which is interesting. So, they might hear one thing and some people say, I like that, and other people say, I don't like that, which in a way leads me to thinking Def Leppard are doing the right thing by just doing what they think is best. Because there's clearly something going on out there at the moment where you can't please all of the people all of the time. And people are expecting different things or wanting different things from Def Leppard in this day and age. And I sort of think they're in a little bit of a no-win situation. And that being the case, as artists, the best thing to do is just follow your own muses and then do what you think and what you like. If people like it, great. If they don't, so be it. So my overriding thing with this at the moment, rather than giving it a mark out of 10 or a big statement on the quality, I'm just simply really enjoying it. I'm really, really enjoying it. It's a new Def Leppard song. It's a style of Def Leppard song I like, and it's uplifting and it's enjoyable. And the way the world is at the moment and everything, Paul, to get a song sort of like this and a new Def Leppard song that it's called Rejoice, and it's obviously as mentioned in that press statement, the verse part is about someone feeling downtrodden. Then you get to a pre-chorus and the chorus, and it's all about rejoicing and having a great time and going to a higher plane and all of that. So I like all of it. It's a new Def Leppard song. I'm well into it, and I'm really, really enjoying it. I love the opening. I love the drums. I love that sort of siren effect. This might put you off, Paul, because I know Diamond Star Heroes, Halos, Diamond Star Halos fan. But it reminds me a little teeny bit of, in the chorus to fire it up. They've got that sound effect that Phil uses on the guitar as well. It's obviously different, but it feels like an extension of that fire it up bit in the chorus, but done better and sort of in a better song as well. I think the riff's fine. Riff's okay. It reminds me of quite a sort of sleazy 80s LA, dare I say, Motley Crue type riff. The riff's cool. It's no take what you want when it comes to the riff. I mean, take what you want is all riff. I mean, it's all about that riff. So they haven't come up with a riff that's as good as that, but it's still, it's a good riff. The distorted voice in the verse, I like it. I really like it. I think I'm always looking for something a little bit different in Def Leppard songs. I want it to sound like Def Leppard, but I always very much embrace it when, they do something a little bit different. And there's a few things in here that are a little bit different. So that's sort of perfect for me. Sounds like Def Leppard, but trying a little bit of variation on some of the things they do. That distortion as well, it fits the nature of the lyric. If you actually listen to the lyrics, where it's all very sort of down and sort of somber and everything, it fits the nature of the lyric in the verse. What were your thoughts on the verse and the distorted voice and all of that?
Yeah, I was fine with the distorted vocals, and the funny thing is, it's pretty much exactly the sort of thing that I might complain about. But for whatever reason, it fits here. I wrote down there's a cruise control vibe. This is a
Yeah.
significantly better song than Cruise Control, and using that, they've basically used that kind of idea. They've got a distorted vocal that in a slower verse, and I think it really works here personally, where it didn't work earlier. And similarly, you made the point about the fire it up siren thing. This sound they've got going here is probably what it should have sounded like on Fire It Up, is my little take there, because yeah, it's not a sound I was on board with, as you have identified. But yeah, specifically to that distorted vocal, I really don't have an issue with it in this context at all.
And then we lose the distorted vocal in the pre-chorus, and I think the pre-chorus is a real highlight. I love the melody of the pre-chorus. I think it sounds really like nice and bright because you drop that distortion. And the very first time I heard it, I don't know if you've heard the song Backstreet Symphony by Thunder, there's a little flavor of the chorus melody of Backstreet Symphony in that pre-chorus as well. So I really like that chorus. I think it works really well to then take us into the chorus itself. Now, I think the chorus is deceptively catchy. The first few times I heard it, I thought, oh, okay, yeah, chorus is good, it's fine, I like it, but it's not necessarily a particularly catchy chorus or anything. Give it a few days and I've only listened to it sort of a few times. I'm sort of find myself humming it and singing it. So it is a deceptively catchy chorus. I really like the chorus, and there's a few reasons I like it. I think it's a bit different. And I don't know if you noticed this, and please disagree with me if I'm not hearing something. But I think it's quite an unusual chorus in terms of the whole chorus is like backing vocals almost. And there's no part of it where Joe really like cuts through. So normally if you listen to a Def Leppard chorus, it'll have the big gang vocals. But like at the end of a line, they'll drop out and it'll just be Joe, or it'll be Joe interspersing it with like a line over the top. I think this is interesting where it's just all of them all of the time with no one voice cutting through. And I think that's quite different for a Def Leppard song, and I really like it. I think that's a production choice. In fact, no, I'm certain that's a production choice. I don't think they're in a position where they don't have the skills to produce things well. I think they're choosing for this to sound quite noisy, to sound quite heavy, to sound quite like intense, because there's loads going on in that chorus because you've got layers and layers and layers of vocals. You've got the riff comes back in. You've still got that siren is going off sort of in the background. There's absolutely loads going on. And I think there's two ways of looking at that. You could either look at it and think, oh, that's a bit much, or I find that a bit muddy or whatever. I don't. I think it works really, really well. And I think it makes the song quite heavy. And I'm a big fan of that. What are your thoughts on the chorus?
Yeah, well, to that lo-fi point, I also think it's deliberate. I think they've kind of captured a bit of a retroactive aesthetic where it's just got that slightly rawer touch. The vocals, the backing vocals are all present and correct. They're not that they're a bit more understated than they might sometimes be, and maybe that's what is being sort of defined as muddiness. Because I do think it's slightly different, but I think it's very deliberate, and it reminded me of Ring of Fire to pick a song off just in terms of the type of sound they're going for, and those vocals sounded a bit like the bridge in Ring of Fire to me. So I like it. Again, I like that slightly lo-fi approach to it. There's something about it that just seems a bit grittier and a bit honest and a bit deliberate. So I agree with you about the catchiness completely. I like so you mentioned about the bridge. I just love the bridge in this. I think, or the pre-chorus, as our American friends would call it. I just think it's brilliant, and I like as well the fact that it's the lyrical brightness of it and the sound of it is a direct contrast to the lyrical darkness and dark mood in the verse. I think that's a beautiful little contrast thing they've got going on there. Come the chorus, I'm exactly the same as you. It didn't immediately hit me as the catchiest chorus in the catalogue, as much as I thought it was all right. And yet, there it's been in my brain over the course of the last few days. It's got this sort of that stop-start thing in it. So it's not just flowing all the way through. And that seems to get its hooks in you somehow. Like it's just pausing for a moment just for you to take on board what it is you're listening to. So I think that's really, really good. It's something that I really, really enjoy. What else did I put here? Just on the backing vocals again, I made one little kind of observation about the understated nature, because I think sometimes it can go and has gone too far the other way. It has been said there's not enough of the backing vocals, or it's not classic Leopard harmony, and I'm really struggling for that, because it's absolutely there. It's just it is slightly differently presented than it might normally be. And so I thought of an example of when I think it's been done too much. And one that really stands out is the acoustic version of Two Steps Behind. The wherever you go, when that comes in the third, particularly when you hear it in the first chorus out of that quite stripped down first verse, I think it sounds too heavy-handed. It's Only Love from Euphoria is another example where I think it's actually overdone a little bit too much in the chorus. So it can work both ways. Personally, I think, again, for the vibe of this song, they've got the balance of it just right. I think it works really well.
Let's go to the guitar solo though. I think the guitar solo is great, and I think people could probably argue with some of the things that we've said so far and have different opinions on it and everything. I think it's pretty clear that this is quite a different type of guitar solo for Def Leppard.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the highlight of the song, the guitar solo. I don't think I was, well, I know for a fact I wasn't the only one because I know you heard the same thing, and I definitely saw someone else subsequently say it online as well. There clearly is a bit of "we will rock you" phrasing in the
Yeah,
guitar solo. Yeah, that I think is entirely deliberate. And it, how would you describe it? Because it's not, it's somewhere between, you know, on Die Hard the Hunter, that
yeah.
fantastic long solo that Steve does on Die
Mm,
Hard the Hunter, and it's not a shredding solo.
mm.
You can clearly hear every note. It's very melodic. Whereas obviously Phil, we know, is very capable and enjoys a shred. Certainly towards the end of his solos, the very end of Phil's solos always tends to be quite shreddy. This is somewhere between that melodic, just picking the notes out, and the shred bit. And the tone of it is absolutely beautiful. This is just a beautifully played guitar. Who is it played by?
I'm not sure because it's slide guitar. I've definitely heard or seen an interview with Viv where he's joked that whenever it comes to playing slide, they always get him to do it because they think he's good at it. He's his usual sort of self-deprecating himself and saying, "Well, I'm not particularly, but I'll just do it." So the fact that it's slide guitar made me initially think that it is Viv. And also, even though there is a bit where it speeds up at the end of the solo, it's not like shredding. It's just being played fast. It's not like it's not like that sort of flourish you get when Phil normally ends a solo. So I think it's Viv, but I've seen people be quite adamant that they know or feel that it's Phil. You mentioned to me as well, if it's a Phil song, is it more likely that he's playing the solo? So there is that. Though the counter argument to that is that I don't think there's any Viv songs on Diamond Star Halos, and that being the case, he still plays solos on them. But I'd have to go through it and think, is he playing solos on songs that Phil has written, or is he only playing solos on songs that maybe Joe and Sav have done? I'm not too sure. Gun to my head, I think it's Viv, but I could well be wrong. What do you think?
Yeah, gun to my head, Viv. But full disclosure, I am not always the best person to ask as to who an individual guitar player is on any given album. There's just times where I just can't quite fully pick it out. Is the whole truth. So I don't feel confident enough, even though I am a middle-aged white male on a podcast. Believe it or not, I don't feel confident enough to just state something that I am not and particularly uncertain about. So I don't know. Gun to my head, I'd pick Viv, but I don't know.
The last thing that comes to mind. The song is you've got the bit after the guitar solo where it's a classic Def Leppard, bit of novelty, bit of quirky production. Where there's a bit where he says down, 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 and it gets deeper, and the sort of song sort of drags to a stop, and then it comes back in again. So there's that. I mean, again, we talked recently about Let's Get Rocked and all of the sort of like little quirks and things and that and everything. To me, that's just Def Leppard doing what they've always done. They've always done little sort of quirky things and things like that. And it's either your bag or it isn't. You know what? I'm a dickhead with a Def Leppard podcast, and I like pretty much most of what Def Leppard do. And this song really works for me. To put it into context, though, to let's see to what extent it works for both of us. They've obviously over the last 4 years they've released. This is their fifth single of an original song that they've released. So you had Kick, Take What You Want, and Fire It Up from Diamond Star Halos. And you also had Just Like 73, which is currently on no album. And then the fifth one is You've Got This One. How does this song compare to those for you?
So there's a very clear top two in my head, and that is Take What You Want and Rejoice. I think Take What You Want is a better song. I do. But I don't know that there was any point where I was enjoying Take What You Want as much as I'm enjoying Rejoice. So that sounds like a politician sitting on the fence answer.
So Take What You Want is the best single that they've released in the last 4 years. And I think still is clearly the best single that they've released. I think Rejoice is the next best one. And I actually think the fan reaction to Take What You Want, which has been overwhelmingly positive, has probably influenced their decision to release Rejoice, in the sense that it's not the same type of song, but it falls broadly into the rockier, more upbeat, heavier type of song. And I would be gobsmacked if the response to Take What You Want isn't why they brought out a song like Rejoice. I think it's great. I really, really like it. Can I just tell you something else that you said, which I think is quite exciting? So there was another interview that they did, and in the interview, they said that Rejoice was originally thought of as a show intro, walk on music, if the band ever played in the round again. Do you think they're trying to tell us something, Paul?
Oh, I hadn't actually considered it from that perspective. So yeah, maybe they are. But I genuinely, what I thought? I thought, when because it originally starts as Joe's got this lyrical idea, and then Phil does whatever the drum loop bit comes in. I think it's Ronan who does the drum loop programming at that
Mm.
point. I was thinking, well, that drum loop programming with a bit of that noise behind it. In my head, I was thinking, well, that's what they mean. They'll just play that drum loop with a bit of noise behind it, a little bit like the first clip reveal we got in the build up to the release of this single. But you have just completely changed my direction on that one. And I think, yes, absolutely, they might make a return to In the Round based on that and that alone. You've convinced me. Well done.
That would be fantastic. When they talk about it being the walk on music, are you assuming, like me, that they mean that initial bit, the drums, the power chords, and the siren as the walk on music, as opposed to the whole song?
Yes, that's what I take from that snippet, but I think you've potentially turned the whole thing upside down. Because I've got to say, I don't think it'd make a great opening song for a gig. It's too the verse is too when I first heard it before it sort of grew that little bit more, I did find the verse slightly plodding, but that's I've got over that completely now. It wouldn't make a great opening song, but that bit, that segment, yeah, it's got atmosphere about it. That tribal drum thing, that undefeated thing, that drum thing is pretty cool, which is obviously all taken from Rocket ultimately, mucking about with drum loops like that.
Yeah, definitely. So, if this is a sign of what is to come for the new album, are you happy, Paul?
I'm very happy. No, people who have listened to when I've been on this podcast previously, I've been fairly clear that Diamond Star Halos is not my favorite Def Leppard album. It's not my favorite version of Def Leppard. If this is a signifier of where they are creatively at this point, I will be absolutely made up, while simultaneously absolutely supporting their right to do whatever the hell it is they want. And if I don't like it, who cares? You know what I mean? But yeah, it's this one enough to make me very, very excited.
Just out of interest, because it's the type of thing that we do. Would this song sit comfortably on any previous Def Leppard album, do you think? Or does it sort of stand alone and maybe wouldn't really fit anywhere? What do you think?
No, it'd sit very comfortably across most of the discography. Well, do I mean most? It there's nothing about the vibe of this that wouldn't sit on Pyromania. Maybe it's not quite just traditional rock and roll hard rock for high and dry. It wouldn't fit on. Maybe some people think it would fit on Slang because of the whole distorted vocal thing. I'm not entirely sure it would because of the uplifting verse chorus thing, but there'd be room for this on this type of thing on Adrenalize, Hysteria, on Euphoria, definitely through Sparkle Lounge, and but the self-titled album. You can hear I'm just reeling them off in my head. I think arguably not Diamond Star Halos. In fact, sorry to keep dragging this out. Do we think this is a leftover from those writing sessions, or do we think this is a totally new construct?
I think this is new. I think with Just Like 73, that is, and I think feels like a leftover. That sounds like a Barb comment. I mean, it's just a song that they never had time to finish to put on there. I think Just Like 73, it fits with Diamond Star Halos. It's not a million miles away from a Fire It Up or a Kick or Give Me a Kiss That Rocks or something like that. I think if you put Rejoice on Diamond Star Halos, it would stand out a little bit, but that's a little bit of a weird thing to say because there's lots of different stuff on Diamond Star Halos, and some of them do stand out. So by virtue, maybe it does fit it, but it feels in modern Def Leppard era. I think it probably feels like it would sit on the 2015 Def Leppard album more than Diamond Star Halos. And if we just go back a little bit further, it feels like the vibe of the song and the verse of the song and maybe even the chorus of the song feels like it could be on slang. But with that bridge, pre-chorus, and the production that moves it over to sort of euphoria a little bit, I sort of feel it straddles slang and euphoria sort of quite well. But I agree with you. I think it would sound more in keeping if it was on Euphoria than it would on slang, because I could, I can imagine it next to like Kings of Oblivion or Day After Day or one of these songs. But yeah, fantastic. So to conclude, my view is a very welcome, very enjoyable Def Leppard song that I'm really getting into, really, really like. I've loved cranking it up in the car, and it's horrible January where the world is in a great place, and it's already giving me that little look forward to sort of spring and brighter days and going to see the Leps in the summer as we will be. Really, really welcome song from Def Leppard.
Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted it's here. And I think it'll be a lot of fun to talk about again once we get it in the context of an album, because context on an album always does gives a song a new life, for better or worse. So looking forward to talking about Rejoice again one day.
All right, everyone, thanks for listening. And if you keep your eye on your podcast platform of choice and you're subscribed to the podcast, which of course you are, give it a couple of days. And after this episode, which was a bonus emergency episode, we'll have our scheduled release, which is a review of Diamond Star Heroes, the Blu-ray and live album release that came out just before Christmas. See you later.